Welcome to the Reality Revolution. Today, I'm so super excited. I have Victor Oddo, and we're going to talk about the awakening. We're going to talk about a variety of different topics. If anybody does not know who Victor is, you can find his YouTube channel. He is a magnificent teacher and helper for people that are going through the process of awakening. I know that I have struggled a number of times in the process of awakening, going through the hermit phase, going through that Buddha phase, and not knowing what to do. And without Victor's help, numerous times on my spiritual journey, I'd have been in big trouble. So I was super excited to get a chance to talk to Victor. And welcome to the Reality Revolution, Victor.
Thank you, my friend. It's a blessing and an honor to be here with you. I look forward to it.
Fantastic. So your channel is very unique, and I find a lot of correspondence with your journey as to mine. You did something that's pretty hard to do. You had pretty successful jobs. You had another job. You had a couple of different businesses, and you decided, I don't want to do this. This doesn't feel right to me. And you made a big leap of faith and changed your whole life to focus on what you do now. I wanted to talk more about that. So let me know a little bit.
Sure. You know, what I went through is, I think, what a lot of people are probably going through right now, where they're starting to see their life, and oftentimes a big part of our life is our career, in a different light. And something that may have once resonated, once, you know, appropriate and satisfied you, as we grow, sometimes that thing in our life, career, no longer feels appropriate, no longer fulfills us. And usually around that time, there's a yearning for like a deeper meaning in our life, more of a sense of purpose, sometimes more freedom. And that sort of process started happening to me. I started realizing I don't want really to have these jobs anymore. They feel like they're just draining me. They're taking up all my time, my energy. I'm sort of like not even present for my family and my wife, and kind of this like guy who's sucked into these jobs that were once cool, but no longer are. And I also felt this like feeling like there's something more to life. And for a while it was just, yes, I sensed there's something more to life. But eventually it started to become like, well, now is the time to pursue that. It's like, I just had a feeling like now's the time to stop saying eventually someday I'd like a change. And it's like, it became where like, now is the time to make the change. And I just knew it in my soul. It was so hard. It was so hard to let go of the stability, the financial security. I'm a father, you know, I had bills to pay, but I had just such a strong burning intuition that this is the right move, as crazy as it sounds. And finally, after much resistance, I let go and just went with it, and it worked out.
Right. And so it's just nice to know somebody else that's been on a similar journey, because that's a big leap of faith. You get into the job, you get stuck with it, and you got to make a big change. And you're starting to have these big changes in your life. Awakening is a word that sometimes is co-opted a little bit, and it means a lot of things to a lot of people. So when I say awakening, what I'm talking about is an awakening to an understanding, an awakening to my own senses and perception, an awakening to who I really am and how the world works. So that is at least my beginning understandings of it. But as I've gone on, I still don't claim to know everything. And so the great thing for people that are struggling with this, you've been through it. So give us a little definition or idea of what it means when you're going through an awakening.
Yeah, well, I agree with what you said, man. I think fundamentally the main thing is the shift in perspective that leads to a new identity, where for a long time we are fully identified with the personality, the character we're playing. And over time, as we go through an awakening, we start to kind of see that there's more to us. And we start to see how a lot of the ways we conduct ourselves, the behaviors, beliefs, aren't really ours, rather are just sort of conditions, things we just picked up from our parents and society at large, all through life. And we start to kind of see through the illusion, see through like where we're able to see what is truly us at the core and what is not. And from this greater awareness of who we really are, we start to naturally adjust our life so that it's more of a match for who we have now found ourselves to truly be. But that process can be a bit messy, hence the reason I'm here, hence the reason you're doing what you do, because it can be a lot of changes and a lot of a lot of new things to come to terms with. But the result is just more harmony, a greater, clearer sense of self, and just a life that's more of a reflection of our true heart's desires and passions.
Right. And so one of the big changes for me, and you talk about it on your channel, is one morning you love these certain things. You might love football or certain kinds of music, and then you wake up as you're going through this process, and it's a daily process, and you don't love a bunch of stuff. All of the things that you're passionate about change. And for a lot of people, that's disconcerting. It kind of leads to a sort of depression because you're starting to realize what's not important and unimportant. So you helped me through that. I wanted to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, it kind of comes in waves. So we go through a time, just as you said, where we realize, a lot of the things in my life, it could be relationship, career, interest, hobbies, living situation. And all of a sudden it's like, none of it fits. None of it feels right. All of it's wrong. And that begs the question, like, well, what is right? Where do I go from here? It's kind of an overwhelming dawning of awareness that can also, even when we get the courage to like quit the job or move out of the living location or end the relationship, there's still for a lot of us like a void, this like depressed space where we let go of a lot of stuff because like our own intuition was showing us this is not you, this does not resonate. You let it go, and then there's like nothing. You're just like in this depressed sort of void of like nothing, where nothing new is coming in. But that's temporary, and it's a good opportunity to really examine like who am I? What do I want to create in my life? And that's an essential, albeit lonely time of a seeker's journey. It's important to really get clear on who you are and what you want. And with all that space we create from letting go of the things that no longer serve us and resonate with us, that's when the new things, the new relationships, the new opportunities, the new business ideas, new everything can really start to come in. And we're like a magnet, we just attract them. And then life becomes really awesome.
Right. So one of the things that you've taught me, and as I went through the process, is a sort of sensitivity to energies that are coming in. And it's very different for a lot of people to suddenly become aware of the moon and the times and the seasons. And it's you, that's what you have taught me, this sort of sensitivity to these energies. Now, tell me where that comes from. Is that a study in astrology? Is it a personal, you're just going back and reflecting what you've experienced? Because that stuff really helped me, this sensitivity to energies as I go through this process.
Yeah, I think it's just a byproduct of the spiritual awakening process. It just makes us more sensitive and more perceptive to influences that were always there, whether they be from like other people's energy, whether it be good or bad, the astrological cycles, our environment, all of these things have always affected us, but as you awaken, you become more experientially aware of it. It's not an idea, it's something you experience physically. You can physically feel the effects of like a really good loving friend or partner. You can feel the love and just respect more deeply. On the same token, you can feel the energy of someone who doesn't have your best interest at heart, or sort of like a low vibe person, or just sort of like a person who's, maybe an imbalanced relationship. You can feel it physically. And same with like the astrology as well. It does affect our consciousness, and we become more sensitive during like the full new moons. So what I described priorly is sort of amplified during certain astrological cycles. And I know it's wild. It's like, what the hell is happening to me? It's all in my head. But it's like, no, it's like really happening. You can't, after a while, you can't deny it. And the nice thing is there's millions of people right now who understand, because they're going through it too. So unless we're all crazy, there's something going on here.
Right. Now, one of the most fascinating things, and I can't wait to ask you about, you actually went through a Dolores Cannon hypnosis therapy session, and I've talked about Dolores Cannon a lot on my channel, and you discovered some really interesting things about your past life. So tell me how that process went, and how it changed, your perspective on the world and things like that.
Yeah, I'm a huge Dolores Cannon fan myself, my friend.
Yeah.
So yeah, I woke up intuition to get a past life regression. And at that point, I didn't even know much about what they were. I think I heard the term a week prior, and it's like, I just had a knowing I should get one. So I Googled it, past life near me, and there was a QHHT practitioner within a couple of miles of my house, and I booked a session, and that's sort of like a big sort of past life regression. And yeah, man, I went in kind of skeptical, not thinking I could be hypnotized, just sort of skeptical that I could literally go into past life. It just seemed, even as a spiritual guy, it seemed far-fetched for me, but it was very legit, extremely powerful, able to see like a lot of the phobias and deep fears and just sort of like the patterns in my life that as much introspective work I've done, I can't really pinpoint as to where I would have picked it up that intensely in this life of mine. But come to find out, there's other experiences, whether you call it a parallel incarnation or a past life, kind of the same thing depending on your perspective. There are other versions of Victor who have had lives where there was like these traumas and these issues that somehow or another are still affecting me in my vibration in this life. And I think the spiritual awakening for a lot of us, the opportunity to clear the energies and the vestiges of these wounds and traumas that we may have experienced in the past or have connections to. But the QHHT gave me an awareness of where these things came from in a very sort of vivid way. And in seeing the origin of these patterns, it was like the natural byproduct was like an immense release and catharsis, and I felt liberated.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned in the video that you had a memory of an extraterrestrial experience. So do you have a clue of what planet that was, or what it was like? Tell us a little more about that.
Yeah, that was like the last life I went to in the past life regression. I don't think that was super essential. I almost think that was just to kind of like satisfy my intrigue a little bit. No, personally, I think some people are here to really go deep into like their origin. There's a relevance to their life purpose to understand those things. For me, it's more just an awareness of a connection with probably multiple ET civilizations as you as well, I'm sure. So the specifics I don't have for you, but I do recall the feeling of it all being in a very much higher vibration. And there was none of the heavy emotions that we feel, like fear and anxiety and stuff. It was more just like love and acceptance and expansiveness, and very nice and colorful and peaceful. I was like, damn, I wouldn't mind taking another visit there.
Very cool. So you've pondered this, I know you have, with Dolores Cannon and the Law of One. What do you think's going on when we're going through this transition to this higher realm? Different channeled entities are talking about New Earth and 5D and fourth density, and nobody really knows exactly. But as you're somebody that's pondering this on a regular basis, what is your perspective on what is happening?
Sure, yeah, and all I can offer you, of course, is my perspective. I don't
know.
We have some insider info. I sense there's the planet and perhaps the whole universe going through an acceleration of its vibrational frequency, and it's changing everything kind of from within on an energetic level. And I think what it's doing is causing a lot of density in general, dense energy, the collective fear, just the collective unconsciousness is like being purged up to the surface. And that's why I think we're seeing so much upheaval in the politics in the world and the weather in our own lives. But through this catharsis is more awareness, and we get to see more clearly how we've been conducting ourselves as a person, as a species, and then from here there's the option of making new choices. And I think a lot of people who are going through an awakening are sort of shifting themselves in a very positive way towards what you might call a positive timeline, where things are going to continue to increase, and there'll be more synchronicity, more flow, more ease, more love, more harmony. And I also feel like there's a splitting going on where not everybody at this time on a soul level is choosing that path. And that's okay. I don't look at it as bad or negative, higher or lower. But some people, I think, are going to create a different type of learning experience for themselves with this exact same situation. So on one hand, people like you and me, I think, are going to see brighter and brighter days in our own life, where simultaneously there might be others on the planet who are experiencing darker and darker sort of manifestations of their ego. But there's value in learning and lessons in that as well. But that's what I see. It's kind of sort of a division happening right now. More distinct than ever.
Do you think you think it's possible that people are being manipulated away from the awakening, or their souls are letting it happen? Do you understand what I'm saying? That obviously media and government, there are forces at play that want us to do certain things. We see it on TV all the time. And so I sometimes worry, we have free will, but so do those media outlets and the government and everything. Is a certain group of people we're on the path maybe towards a sort of new earth situation, and they're being manipulated, and they have not been educated, and they don't know, and it's unfortunately being manipulated and pulled away from that? Or do you think their souls are choosing that path for educational purposes? Do you understand what it's a hard question. Yeah.
Yeah, my personal stance is that of like radical responsibility. I mean by that, if I get a flat tire, I don't think it's some bullshit random act of the universe. I feel like I attracted that flat tire. There's a reason. There's a vibration in me that attracted that flat tire.
Right.
Now it's inconvenient, and I could bitch about it, or I could say, why did that happen? Why did I attract that? And I can always learn something from the problems in my life. So I see personally, like the negative forces, if you will, are in fact very real. But I also believe they would not be in our existence. They would not be influencing us if there's not something within us, some darkness within us, unresolved, that doesn't correlate with that. So if being heavily influenced by just a negative person or the media or whatever it is, there's something in me that I can heal. I can have a say in the fact. And I find if I take responsibility for everything in my life, the good and the bad, including the what you described, I can learn from it. I can grow and become more empowered. And that's been my sort of way of rolling with it. And then consequently, I don't feel as affected as before.
Right.
I can dedicate myself to meditation practice. I go out to nature. I tend to do these things. And even though a lot of people might attract a lot of control on themselves, I think there's something, they have a role in that. And if they are willing to look at that, they can empower themselves and no longer need that reflection to show them where they're being disempowered within their own life. So that's my stance. Right. I know a lot of people have a lot of anger and resentment towards this, but I don't think that serves them. I think that keeps us stuck in this low vibration energy, anger and resentment, instead of taking responsibility and doing our part.
Can we change politics? I take responsibility just like you. And there's a part of me that says, I can change that. I can change what's going on in the government. I can change this global warming. How far can we go in our power to change the world individually?
Yeah, I think it's a group effort with as far as changing the world. Can I change politics? No, not really, because that's not my passion, really.
Right.
I have my own passion, and if you follow your passion, and if our neighbors follow their passion, I think someone's passion is going to be going in that direction. As long as we just like admit who we really are and go with that and roll with that, I think over time collectively we will see big changes. And if not, maybe a big percentage of the world doesn't do that. I'm confident that I can bounce off anything, and so can you. No matter what's going on in the world, I'll have my own experience of that. For example, like during COVID, a lot of people were like, oh my God, and I get that. And I felt that for initially, but I had a lot of breakthroughs, a lot of self-discovery. I had Sedona most of the time. So my experience of a very challenging time was very positive. And I think that we all have the power to create these positive experiences of even the most negative things. So I don't even think it matters what happens personally. I'm not even thinking about that.
And that's great. That's a great perspective to hear. Now, one of the cool things you talk about on your channel is, and you and your wife's relationship, and I just got married too. And so it's something I'm thinking about. First of all, what is your definition between soulmate and twin flame? When you talk about those two things, are they the same? Are they different? How do you define it?
My personal opinion is that I'm not in a position, at least me, to able to confidently distinguish the two. Okay. I know my wife, there's a soul love there. Also with my children and some of the friends I have. But for me to say with certainty, this is a twin flame, this is a soulmate, I don't know. I personally feel like that term gets very glamorized and misconstrued. And then people place a lot of like unnecessary expectations and create a lot of conflict unnecessarily just because of that little definition. Right. Now, there are some people that really seem to be a really relevant part of their journey, and I don't discount that. But for me, it's not essential for me to understand the difference of the two. I don't know, honestly. Right.
Yeah, I've met people that are like, she's my soulmate, but not my twin flame, or she's my twin flame, but just not my, like, you're using that almost as a way it'll mess up the relationship, and these definitions. So I wanted to get perspective of that. So what would you recommend for somebody that's really struggling right now? And I know you get emails that is super lonely. They don't know what's going on. They're in that sort of that deep, hard phase of awakening. We're at the beginning. You do talk about it in videos, and that's what I want anybody to do is go check out your videos. But while I have you here, what would you recommend they do that, to go as they're going through that phase?
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of times during those types of challenging times, the best thing to do is nothing. It's just to kind of accept and be and sort of tune inward into their intuition and not try to find peace and safety in anything I say or you say or circumstance. Rather, find that peace and stability within themselves. And then as that happens, then things start to kind of shift and become a little more stable, not perfectly stable at all. But there's value and there's lessons and there's so much growth that comes from these crappy pain in the ass, what the hell's happening to me types of phases. And no matter what's happening, and anyone listening to this life right now, it's for their highest good. It's helping them literally, and it's something they can handle and will be just fine from, and in the near future probably benefit from immensely, and look back and think, wow, thank God I went through that, as sucky as it was.
So I like to steal rituals. I like to know what's your morning ritual, and what do you, as you go through, when you wake up, how do you, when do you meditate, and do you have any practices or techniques that you use?
Yeah, I get bored easy, so I'm always shifting through different things. And I have 3 children, they're young, and I don't have a ton of time. But I wake up every day and I meditate for about 5 to 10 minutes. I put in earplugs and I just go through different meditations. I just try to get really still and quiet and conscious and just present. And then I take a cold shower. And in the cold shower, I do breath work. I do Wim Hof breath work. And that usually gets me into the day. And then I have other things I do throughout the day. Like I'll take naps sometimes, like a 20-minute nap with earplugs, and then another cold shower. I like to exercise. And then I go into a cold plunge at night, right before bed. So those are my things currently.
That is, so you're saying something that I've been really pondering, and I'll use the silencing headphones or earphone. It seems like there is an effect when I can close out even the sounds in the outside world. Of course, when we're meditating, we can try to just take those sounds and ignore them. But there is something about reducing the sound when you use earplugs that seems to, awaken a different part of our brain. Is that what you found?
Yeah, I started using them. I did a flotation therapy session a long time ago, a sensory deprivation tank, and they had me wear earplugs, and I was like, oh wow, automatically that makes it easier to like tune inward. So I just used them ever since. It just makes it easier for me to almost like tap into my inner silence, my inner beingness. It's just easier to access with them.
So yeah, that's definitely good to know. I noticed that you have a great book on Ascension symptoms, and I'll make sure to put a link in this video for people that maybe don't know what they're going through. They're tired, or they're fatigued, or they're going through these things, and you've kind of discussed that a little bit in your book or PDF that you have available. So I'll make sure to make that as a link here. But the other thing that I wanted to talk about that you talk about is just the idea of how we relate to others in ourselves as a service to others, service to self, understanding ourselves in relation to what everything else is going around. Do we let go of our ego? Do we there's a part of the process of awakening is this understanding, if you've been to and done different plant medicines and stuff like that, part of the process is that this dissolving away of ego, which is part of the awakening process. But there's also it can go too far, or I'm trying to put this into a question because it's so fundamentally related to awakening. How do you deal with the ego and the self in the process of awakening? Maybe that's the best way I can.
Sure. And I wanted to say for your own reference that I don't mind going 5 or 10 minutes over.
Okay, good.
I'm enjoying myself, my friend. So yeah. So I feel like what you're asking is sometimes there's like the balance of like service to self, which sometimes is appropriate if people are walking all over you, or just service to others and expense for our own, at the expense of our own sort of well-being. Is that kind of what you mean? That dance?
Right. There's a dance that goes on. Like I obviously want to take care of other people, and it's very important in my spiritual journey. But then I don't want to I don't want to let go of myself at the same time. And there's that everybody battles with this idea of ego and self as they go through the awakening process.
Yeah, I think like a lot of things in life, bro, it's like, it's not black and white. It's not, there's one right and one wrong. It's a dance. It's a balance. And what helps me, I find if we're really tuned into our body, it can be pretty obvious. Like there was a time not too long ago where my friend was struggling with something. And like, I didn't feel guided, but I wanted to help her. I wanted to step in and make her feel better. But I knew internally, like it was probably okay for her to be in anguish. But I did anyway. I went against my better judgment and I gave her some advice, and I could just tell it felt wrong. It felt like I was overstepping my boundaries. It was not helpful. She was not ready to hear it. And it was just but I could feel it energetically. So in that case, it was not the right time to do something. There's other times where you might feel like you could step in and do something nice and it feels right. You'll feel like a pull. There's a resonance to doing it. So I think if we're just in tune with our own body, we can feel vibrationally what's the best move to make. To serve in this moment, or to take time for ourselves. Maybe we're serving so much, we're getting exhausted, and our body will tell us you're doing too much. You're not balanced. You're not loving yourself, and then you're not even giving all that much to this person anyways. So it comes with experience. Discernment comes with experience, but I can feel physically usually what the right move is in the moment.
Have you ever connected with guides or a higher self or guardian that in any way during this process?
Yeah, for sure, man. And but what I gather from them is that this time on earth is about us coming into our own power. And though we're looked after and supported, I know myself in the past had the tendency to reach out and pray and do stuff like that way too much, thinking I needed guidance all the time. I was flipping through tarot cards like a fiend, waiting to be told what to do. So like they're there and they've helped me here and there, and they've made themselves known at times. But I think they want me to do the work myself as best I can. But they're always there if I need them truly. That's my take anyway.
So you mentioned something interesting, and we all end up experimenting or exploring it. Exploring tarot and astrology, which are an idea or prediction of our future. How much do we let that define our future? There's a balance when we use these techniques and things like the I Ching and tarot and astrology, which you talk about on your channel. But then, you have something and it doesn't sound good. And then all of a sudden it just like, it leads you on that road where, well, I remember what the tarot told me, and, and then it can define your future, and it kind of takes away some of your power. Do you understand what I'm saying? So for some people, when they ask me about how to use it, I'm a little bit concerned that it'll lock them into a certain reality, and that they lose some of their own power over, I can do anything in the future, but no, I guess I can't now because Mercury's in retrograde. So how much power do we have over these things, and how much can we, is there a balance? Do you understand my question? My question.
Oh, of course, bro. Yeah. And I've gone down both. I totally understand what you're saying. And there was a psychic reader at one time, a really good one, a tarot reader. And one time he said, Victor, there's not an ounce of magic in these cards. He said, the magic and the magician is in you. He said, like, you can draw a tarot card, and the way I use them is like, it could be the color, it could be the number. There's many different things that can inspire something within myself. So it's almost like a little bridge to my own channeling abilities to gather information, but the cards in of themselves are devoid of significance. And the way I look at astrology, that even though that arguably might have some sort of collective influence, I feel like there's a say in it as well. And I definitely am I'm not quick to let a card or an astrology reading determine or tell me who I am or what I'm capable of or what's coming for me. But in the right balance, they can be used as helpful tools and sort of like sources of like insight at the right times. But it does require balance and moderation, in my experience and opinion.
Right. You've certainly seen people that have let it just destroy their month or week. Like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't go out today. Mercury is in retrograde, and I'll wait until after that. And sometimes I don't know. So
yeah, there's definitely lessons of empowerment to be had, and people who do that, I trust for them, it'll be it'll be just a cycle they go through, and they'll reveal this information themselves in their own time, I think,
Right.
and wake up into their own power when the time is right.
Does food affect your awakening process and what you eat?
Yes. But I also think it's another one of those things that require our own personal discernment. I know for me, there are
Mhm.
times when I gravitate towards light, high vibrational, organic, raw types of foods. There's other times where I feel really ungrounded, like I'm growing too quickly vibrationally. And I naturally resonate with heavier, maybe even unhealthy foods to kind of ground me in. I feel like it's always a balance, and your body will always tell you pretty clearly what is working for you and what is not, rather than a blog post of what you should eat during Ascension. That to me can run into problems
Right.
that I have anyway.
Do you have any, you had mentioned Wim Hof. Have you used any other breathing techniques in in your spiritual journey that have helped enhance or improve the process in any way?
Yeah, I really like. I'm a certified Kundalini yoga practitioner, and I love the breath of fire and the Kapalbhati, so sort of like
Hmm.
short breaths to your nose. I've also done holotropic breath work, which is almost like mimics the psychedelic experience to an extent. It's very
Hmm.
powerful, transformative breath work. I'll use that from time to time for like really deep purging and healing. But I really benefit a lot from breath work. I love it, man. I do some form of it every day, and I have been for years.
So I talk about Kundalini a lot too on my channel. So and so I've had people that tell me, oh yeah, man, I woke up my Kundalini, and then I start talking to them, and clearly they didn't. And so I think that the first thing is there's kind of a misunderstanding of the Kundalini process. In my own experience, the way I was able to differentiate it, it's almost like the orgasm energy is moving beyond and up my body. Very specifically, there is no doubt about it. Uh, would you agree with that? Is it when somebody's Kundalini is awakened, there is no doubt, or can you go through it and not know about it until later?
Yeah, I think with a lot of these sort of experiences, there tends to be a lot of emphasis on them and almost like identification with them. Like,
Right.
I had a real Kundalini awakening and you didn't, so you suck. But I don't think it really matters, man. I really think
Right.
that like that the Kundalini, I see it as like this an energetic component of the spiritual awakening, and people will feel it to varying degrees. Some people it cracks open all at once and it's this overwhelming experience. That's
Hmm.
happened to me. Other people, I think it sort of trickles into them in a very balanced way, so they don't really even think they've ever had one, but it's very much active. It just sort of came out in a more even way, and
Hmm.
everything kind of in between. But I think it's like the Kundalini is just like another catalyst for expanding our consciousness. So it's just like almost like a side note of the greater awakening. So regardless, I don't think it really is essential, and people just it's sort of like how we all have our own learning experience. Some people Kundalini is a big part of it. Some people it's not. We're all heading to the same
It's
place.
not mandatory in the
No.
process. Definitely not mandatory. So a lot of talking about the third eye in the Kundalini process, a lot of people have these beliefs that, oh, it's too late. I've been drinking fluoride and my third eye is calcified. Do you believe that third eye can be calcified? And uh, can we overcome that? And have you seen that in helping your clients out? Uh, I mean, it's hard to really know for sure, but just get your perspective on that.
I agree. I'm not one who's dive deep enough into the research to really say with confidence it does or does not get calcified. But what I can say fundamentally in my experience myself and working with people is that anytime there's anything sort of obstructing us from reaching that next level of consciousness, whether it be fluoride in our pineal gland or a relationship or whatever the hell it is, we will know it. We'll not only become aware of it in some way, but we'll naturally be sort of like gravitate towards things that can help us. So someone I don't think needs to be concerned about it. If it's really an issue for them, they'll be the people who naturally feel excited about going on a juice fast and drinking wheatgrass and doing all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And there can be a real
Right.
joyful, pleasant way of removing the calcification or any obstructions to awakening, rather than I read this, I'm fucked, or what? Sorry, pardon my French. I read
No,
this, I'm
it's okay.
screwed. Oh my God, this is just people giving their power away once again to this information online, in my
Right.
opinion.
Very cool. And so, in the Kundalini process, have you found anything in particular uh, that's very super effective for people that are wanting to awaken their Kundalini? Uh,
Yeah, Kundalini yoga. Kundalini yoga.
In
And
general.
just sort of like really getting clean with your body and diet and fasting can help as well.
Now, do you think when you take DMT, I don't know if you have or not, I think you've been to the retreat in in Costa Rica?
Yeah. I've
Yeah.
done ayahuasca multiple times.
Okay.
And
So is that related to the Kundalini? Or is it my thought is it might not. I don't think it's related to the Kundalini. People say that it may be related to the pineal gland. I think it's something more, but I'm not sure. And so it's great to talk to somebody else that's experienced it. It's just a level of consciousness, right? It's not energetic.
Yeah, you know what? I have a shaman teacher, and she said ayahuasca is another flavor, or like Kundalini and the ayahuasca almost are like another. It's like another flavor of each other. Like they do kind of the same thing. They both expand consciousness. They both purge, lower vibrations to the surface for release, resulting in just a greater sense of self. So I feel like they're sort of very similar. They sort of accomplish the same thing.
So we've gone 40 minutes, and I could probably talk to you for hours and hours, but I just want to spend a little bit of time just thanking you. Without your videos and your help through my process, I'd have been lost. And a lot of times I'd be struggling, and you put out a video, it'd be a simple question and it would help me along. And I know that people out there are having the same thing. It's a common thing. If you're struggling, you're lonely, or you don't know what's going on, you're not alone. And this stuff, people have gone through it, and you have a great way of teaching and helping people through the process. And so thank you. Thank you very much. It's helped me a lot, and I would not have my channel without you, without the teachings that you've given, and I appreciate that. So thank you immensely. And
you're welcome. Thank you for saying that.
And check out Victor's channel if you want. And you talk a lot of, but you have video every week, and there's over 700 videos there that explore a bunch of different topics, and you can just watch them all day. And I promise you, it's worth it for you if you check it out. So thank you, Victor, for coming on, and welcome to the Reality Revolution.
You're welcome. Thank you. I had a great time. I really did. I appreciate you having me on, buddy.
Well, welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm just really excited today because this is the first day that my book is released. This is it. The Reality Revolution. Worked on this for a very long time. So many of the things that I discovered along the way, and I was excited to share it with everybody. Tell you a little bit about it. I'm like everybody else. I'm interacting in the world and starting to realize that my thoughts created reality. As I did this, I started to see some major shifts in my reality. I started to explore the idea of maneuvering through parallel realities. I'm your host, Brian Scott.